Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Mr. Oh no, I did the wrong one. I did the wrong soundboard, guys. I suck at this sometimes. Let's try this again. We have with us today Mr. Glenn Devlin. So, thank you for my patience while I worked out the technical difficulties on my side. Sometimes I press the wrong buttons, it happens. So, Glenn, before we get into your writing, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a deaf-blind retired web developer and a writer of science fiction. After 25 years as a web developer, my eyesight has declined to the point where writing is the only option I have now these days. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so that's impressive. I remember you telling me that when we were first chatting on Reddit. So I guess I got to lead the conversation with, what are your levels of deafness and blindness? I'm assuming it's not 100%. And were you born with those?
Well, I was born deaf, and then as a result of my deafness, I have a condition in my eyesight called Usher syndrome. So what it means is that I have no peripheral vision, it's gone. So when I'm looking at you at the screen, I can only see your face, okay? That's it. And I can't see my own image on the left or to the right. So all I've got is just this. And so over the years, ever since I was a teenager, the vision closed down. Hopefully it's stable for now.
Yeah.
And right now I'm wearing cochlear implants
Okay.
on both sides of the
So,
ear that allow me to hear better than a hearing
I,
aid.
okay. Awesome. So I'm glad that technology has been able to help you out. And I'm really curious your personal experience with this, though. Has it been frustrating knowing that your ability to see has been declining as you progressed in life? You know what it was like to have a full field of vision when you were younger, and now that you're older, it's worse. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I'm restricted from driving, okay? So there's certain things that I can't do in life. I'll never be able to become an airline pilot or able to drive a car. So I make do with what I have. And going to work in computer programming was a natural thing for me to do because it's the easiest job. I can't work in restaurants or drive construction trucks and things like that.
Hmm.
So just working at a computer is the easiest thing for me to do. And in the beginning it was easier, but as my eyesight declines, it becomes harder and harder to keep up with the fast-paced, evolving world of technology.
Hmm. So, what kind of technology do you use to make your everyday life easier? And I'm gonna add something onto that question, which is, what do you use to increase your capability with writing with your technology as well with your eyesight?
Well, for everyday use, well, for example, I go out and walk about. I have my red and white cane when I cross the street, so I keep waving it in front of me. And these cars, they come to a stop. I mean, it's like you're Moses at the Red Sea. The cars see you with the cane. They're like, stop, and they'll stop backing away. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for going through. So that's kind of a cool thing. I use the cane to go everywhere and navigate everywhere as much as I can. And other times I'll have sign language interpreters, sometimes in job meetings and things like that.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So for writing on the computer, then, do you have any special technology to help you with your computer? Because I was impressed that you were able to use Reddit, which is where we met. So tell me about that.
for computers, sometimes I will type on my screen. I will use what you call yellow font on black, dark background, dark mode. So it's easier in my eyesight, but everything stands out more in contrast. So as the
Okay.
writer, I use Scrivener. I set that to dark mode. So it makes it easier to see things, even though I can only see three-fourths of a whole screen. I'll have to
Hmm.
scroll around a little bit looking.
Okay. Awesome. So let's go a little bit into your writing then. So you wrote a book called The Alien Diaries, and I found it on Amazon, and I read I guess you would call it the back of the cover, so to speak, and it really piqued my interest. So tell me about this book that you've written.
I didn't catch the question, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I said tell me about the book that you wrote, The Alien Diaries.
Okay, it's about a book collector that stumbles across a series of diaries that were written by a young girl in 1778. And during that time, against the backdrop of the American Revolution, a spacecraft crashes on the plantation. And she writes of her experiences in the diary. And this guy in the 21st century, he finds all these diaries and he starts reading through them. So my story narrates between the diary and the guy, the book collector who finds them. He's trying to solve the mystery, what's behind them and what happened and why, as well as dealing with his own personal conflict and growth.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I do have to ask, does it come from any personal experience? Have you had any personal experience with spaceships or extraterrestrials or anything like that?
You know, growing up, I've always been fascinated with science fiction. And, you know, Star Wars being my first movie, fell in love with E.T. I just got the land ties toward all those things. As for personal experiences, none. All I can do is hope and wish. Maybe the government will come forth with information, I don't know. But all I can say is that I believe that we're not alone. As for the crashes, the UFOs things, I have no answer to that. I just,
Yeah.
love science fiction.
So have you been following the disclosure recently with the U.S. government, with the whistleblower?
Yeah, I've been following that for the last few days, and I'm kind of on the fence. But at the same time, I'm thinking this guy, he's going forward, and he's being a whistleblower. Is he telling the truth, or is he lying? Because if he's lying, he's going to be in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble. Lying to Congress, you can't do that. So that's something on him. So all we can do right now is wait and see what unfolds in the next few months, or maybe years. Who knows?
Yeah. So again, while I was reading the back of your book, it starts off, and you said, in 1778, 14-year-old Kate Dibble wrote diaries chronicling an alien invasion on a remote planet on the banks of the James River. And so there's that section, and then at the very end, you start to allude to this malicious winged being emerges from a storm. Tell me, do you think that, in your book at least, that there's this kind of crossover between maybe alien technology and interdimensional powerful angels and demons or something like that? Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
There's sort of an interdimensional portion in there because you see, the book collector, when he's on the farm, on the plantation, he cannot escape it. Whatever is trapping him in there has pushed him into a dimension where he's still on the plantation, but at the same time he's not. But he's still in the same time zone, so he cannot leave. He's trapped in there, and they want to keep him there in exchange for another person who is the key to all of this. It's kind of complicated, but yes, interdimensional does play a role in this, even though they're from a distant planet that is linear to our timeline. They just have this ability to push some people into a sideways dimension. So if somebody tries to come and visit the plantation, they won't see them, but the person who's trapped in the dimension can see them.
Okay, gotcha. So you had mentioned earlier that you love sci-fi. Tell me about some of your favorite books that you read growing up.
Say that again.
Tell me about some of your favorite books that you read while you were growing up, because you told me that you liked science fiction.
I kind of like Michael Crichton. I like to blend Michael Crichton with a mixture of Ken Follett because I love history, American history, world history, and I want to blend in both together. And Ken Follett does it in a way that he makes things very, very clear and very simple. Like, for example, the pillars of the earth, where there's politics involved in building the churches in the year 1367. And Ken Follett explains all of this without boring the reader. It just keeps you on going. And Michael Crichton takes you on a wild journey through science fiction like Jurassic Park. Yet explains that he keeps it simple. And I see those two parallels, what I see in my writing as well. In my next book, I'm finishing up a time travel book where the lead protagonist, she is deaf. and she has a son who is deafblind, and she has a daughter who's a coda, and they are trapped in the past and have no way to find their way home. And so I blend in history and science fiction there again, and it's been an amazing journey to write that book. I haven't released it yet, still editing it, but it's been an amazing journey to write it.
Have you read Michael Crichton's book Timeline?
Yes, I read it about 3 times. I loved
Yeah.
it. I thought it was fantastic. The movie
Yeah, I love that.
is hit or miss.
And one thing that I'm really glad that you brought up Michael Crichton, because I appreciate how he blends the realism of science and technology into his science fiction. And don't get me wrong, like I like space operas like Star Wars, and I'm writing a space opera myself, so I love all the fantastical, spaceships and space battles and light speed travel and stuff. Like I love all that, but also he brings such a realism and makes us think like a what if, and he puts this question in our mind. And I think it was in Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm was like, they kept thinking that they could, they didn't stop to think if they should, is one of the things he said. And so he makes us think about technology and how it affects us in our everyday life. And so I guess I have a question for you then, which is, what kind of messages are you trying to talk about in your writing?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about Michael Crichton, his last book before he died was Pirate Latitude, and it's nothing to do with science fiction. He just takes you into that world without going into science fiction, which is amazing. Shows me his range.
Yeah. So you have a book on Amazon. You mentioned that you're writing another one. Do you have any other books that are out, or is it just these two right now?
Yes, I do. I have one called The Old Man from the Stars, and I had to take that one down because I want to go back and edit it and clear up some things in there. I wrote that about 20 years ago. Then I stopped at writing to focus on writing screenplays, and that's a difficult field to break into. But spending 20 years trying to write a screenplay helps me become a better novel writer in terms of showing and not dumping information, but slowly peeling back layers of the story of the characters you go through rather than dump all the information. So when I went back to read the first book, The Old Man from the Stars, that I planned to put it back up, I'm looking at it and said, I'm dumping way too much information. I'm
Awesome.
going to start all over again with that book. So I'm hoping to have
Yeah,
that back up again in a few weeks.
awesome. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up about screenwriting versus novel writing. So I've written novels in the past. They're not published yet because I hold on to them because I feel like they're not quite ready. But I've written them, and then I'm working on a project right now with one of my co-writers, and it's a pilot for a TV show. So we're working more in a screenwriting format, and it's very different to have to show and not tell in a novel versus in a screenplay. You're giving kind of the bare bones, and you're saying dialogue and you're setting the scene, but you have to leave a lot up to the interpretation of the actor and the director, and you have to remind yourself, okay, well, this is the way I'm seeing it, but maybe they would think of it in a different way, and kind of refrain and not use flowery language. So it's a good dichotomy of screenplay versus novel, and how difficult it is to do both well because they're so different.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. It is.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your publishing process. So are you self-published?
Yes, for now. It's been, a learning journey. You have to get feedback and hire editors. And hiring an editor is next to expensive. So I have to rely on my family and my friends to give me feedback as much as they can. And I tried querying a couple of agents, but they all said no, no, no. So I'm hoping maybe with my next book that I'm working on now, which is called Time Family Robinson, I may go down the traditional query route and see what happens. If it's a bunch of no's, then I'll just sub-publish it again. Hey, I just love the process of writing. So I'm not going to let no stop me,
Yeah. No, that's a good point that you bring up, that almost every author that I have on here says, which is they have a message that has to be told. It's like there's a story in their heart and they have to get it out. And so many authors are even willing to pay their own money to publish their own work because they have something to share. And it's not so much about, look at me, I have a book, I want to make money. It's like I have a story to tell, and I would give it to people for free. In some cases, you have to pay the bills, so you got to sell it. But so many people just have a story to tell, and that's part of the artist in all of us. We all have a message that we want to take to the world, and we hope people will listen to us.
Right. The most important thing with the mindset is if you're going to go into writing or screenwriting or writing a novel, you have to love the process. Because if you're thinking, I'm going to get in, I'm going to make $1 million, sorry, it's not going to happen for most of us. I mean, 90% of us have second jobs, third jobs, or whatever to support ourselves. So you have to really love the right process of creating stories and writing and putting the pen to the paper before you even think about trying to become rich. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned this other book. You said it was The Time Family Robinson?
Time Family Robinson.
So I'm going to take a guess. Is it about a family that goes back in time and has to learn how to survive from going back in time? Am I on the right track?
Sort of. They get pulled into a time travel project because the hero of the story, Hannah, who's deaf, I made her to be a worldwide well-known lecturer in world history and things like that. And the guy recruited her, and she said she doesn't want to take the job because she got her kids. She said, bring the kids, So she like Jurassic Park, bring the kids to get into trouble. So she brings the kids over and goes in and sees how the whole thing is set up, and she gets pulled in, and she doesn't like it. She doesn't like the idea that they're messing it through time. She wants to go home. But they can't. Something screws everything up, and they're trapped in the past. She has to find her way home to the past through a series of doorways. I don't want to reveal too much, but that's the gist of it. Yeah. So they would travel to Ben Franklin's time, some of the dinosaurs' time, and things like that. And at the same time, the reader's learning something interesting. Okay. So it's both educational and a lot of fun. And it'll be exploring some aspects of deaf culture and communication while Hannah is on that journey with her kids.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So as we're wrapping up the interview here, do you have any final comments that you want to say?
Just go out there and read Alien Diaries, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And thank you very much for having me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, let's give you a round of applause.
Thank you.